At idle, there's that gentle tremble through the bars, a pulse through the seat, but it's very gentle, and a lovely cami sound. I don't know how it comes up on the camera, but I love the cami sound. It's not a clattery sound, it's a warm, round sort of cami sound, and a lovely deep throb. Okay, well, we'll let her warm up before we get going, and then I'll tell you how she rides. She's a bike that feels very comfortable to ride. As you can see, I'm canted slightly forward, but even at this speed, which is barely 50 kilometers an hour, we have a speed watch on my road. There's a nosy neighbor down there, writes your number down. Got to be careful. I've come up a few times, but at about 49 kilometers an hour, it's perfectly easy on the wrists. Legs tuck in for me beautifully right here. The seat is nice and wide. My legs are bent, but they're comfortable. People have asked, what's the heat like coming off the engine? Haven't noticed it very much at all. I noticed it on a couple of cold mornings, but I haven't noticed it in the hot weather, strangely enough, probably because of the difference between it and the hot weather doesn't seem to be so great. And she's chugging along at 3,000 right now. You know, I said there were issues with the fueling. It's not such that it interferes with riding. In fact, right now, you wouldn't even know about it. The suspension is set up quite firmly. This is standard default setting from the factory. Rick says he didn't change it at all, and I would agree with him. It's just a little firm. I had a couple of people mention when I was riding in my post trip across Canada ride that the camera was bouncing quite a bit, and that was partially the camera and it was partially my bike. It is fairly firm. Luckily, it's fully adjustable, and I intend to go through that and deal with it. There's the speed watcher. He's not looking at me today. Maybe not making enough of a sound for it. Comfortable, no pain on the wrists, not leaning too far forward, although I'm further forward than I am on my Z900 RS, even with slightly lowered bars on that bike. The tank is quite long. I can edge up a little closer if I want. There's lots of movement on it. I really like the way the seat takes a lot of pressure from all over your buttocks, your buttocks, your bum, your derriere, call it what you will. It sort of samples nicely. There's no sort of pinpoints for me of pressure. Now give it, you know, more than an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I imagine that might become the case. I haven't yet found a bike seat that isn't the case on. Such a smooth bike. She makes a lovely sound. Pretty nice purr when you ride her. Brakes are pretty good. They're Brembos. There's one thing I will do is replace the pads. This has got about 14,000 kilometers on it now. It's not a hard pull, just a rangy pull. My Z900, I set up my Suzuki so that I just touch it and the brakes are on. That's what I like. That's my preference. So probably new pads and a little bit of a bleed and they'll be up to snuff. As far as power goes and ease of handling, not bad at all. Riding, she's very stable, slow speed, high speed, whatever you like. What this guy's doing, is he just going to try to let me go past? He is, I guess. That's nice of him. I'm sure I want to, if my camera can stay on at this speed. The shaft drive is very smooth, a lovely feeling, and there's absolutely no shaft jacking. So the shaft does not rise when you hit the throttle. It doesn't waggle around, do any of that stuff. It's very, very smooth. Handling is wonderfully easy. Basically, you look where you want to go, particularly as you get faster. It's quite amazing, quite dynamic in that as you get faster with this bike, it actually seems to be even more reactive. You get faster and you can pile into corners if you think, wow, no problem at all. It doesn't want to fall into corners or roll out of them. So for instance, here I go, I'm just looking right now at what I want, and it's very easy for me just to very slightly push the inside. I mean, am I pushing it? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it, but it turns. You lean it over and the headstock goes, you know, and it's It's interesting. It's very, very good geometry, very neutral geometry. The bike gives you lots of feedback. The front end on the bike is among the best I've ever ridden with. You know exactly what's going on with the front end on this bike, and this bike is planted. The confidence it gives you when you go through corners is amazing. So for what you might perceive as a big, heavy bike, and it is 509 pounds all fluids in, it is remarkably svelte and lithe once you get it moving. I did say that at very slow speeds the steering feels heavy, okay, and that might be the geometry of the 26 degrees of rake, although my Kawasaki has 25. If you let the air pressure go down in it, then it's going to feel a little tougher. It's not a beginner's bike. It has its quirks as far as handling goes, and I mean at slow speeds. At slow speeds it's wonderfully balanced, but if you blip the throttle it will cant slightly to the right, and if you're not expecting that, I suppose if you've got your feet up on the pegs and you're navigating through traffic, that could actually, you know, send you off to the right a few inches and knock a wing mirror on a car, lane splitting as they allow you to do in civilized jurisdictions, unlike here. As you close the throttle, that is the deepest burble roar I've heard in a long time, but it's not excessively loud. The bike feels more than it shouts. It walks the walk rather than screams and shouts at you, which is really nice. I mean, people know you're coming, they can hear the deep baritone nature of the motor, but they're not sitting there wincing. They're actually, you're going to get a lot of looks on this bike, and a lot of people are wondering what it is. It's not a bike I'd call a city bike. If you're going to be stopping and starting, you're going to be working harder on this bike than other lighter machines. You know, I can think of a Japanese 700 with a triple engine by Yamaha. You know the one I mean. I know, sorry, it's a twin engine by Yamaha. That or the Kawasaki Z650. Those are going to be way better in town than this bike. They're much lighter, a little more svelte, and around town they're going to be better. But as soon as you get to actual sustained riding, anything above 30-40 kilometers an hour, and this comes into its own. The red line on this is 8,000 RPM. That should give you an idea of where it makes most of its torque, where a lot of its power is on tap. I mean, I'm just barely cruising along here. Slow speed handling, even with a freaking great camera hanging off the front. Very, very good. So easy. Like I said, the weight is all down low on this thing. Welcome to BC. Rising to 27 degrees. October. I heard Sydney was only 21 today in Australia. Yes, the world is changing and those electric bikes are coming, and hence my desire to explore different engine configurations. And I have to say, I found among my favorites right here the Transverse V-Twin. I had good taste as a child, obviously. I really am enjoying this bike. It gobbles up corners. The engine is so easy and tractable. If you're someone that absolutely loves the crisp smoothness of a four-cylinder, and I do, but that's what you love, and anything else just feels agricultural, then perhaps a V-Twin, particularly a Moto Guzzi Transverse V-Twin, isn't for you, even if it is shaft drive. But if you're someone that enjoys your four-cylinder, and then sometimes would like to harken back to that twin-cylinder bang bang that you had, then may I suggest this bike. It's refined, not really agricultural, and smooth in its power delivery despite the minor fluffy fueling at about 2,000 to 3,500, which is easily rectified, of course. I guess I should close this. I'm a middle-aged guy. I'm not a young man, so this might not be appealing to a young man. I do like the notion that the engine doesn't sound like it's revving its nuts off every time you do something. I like the deeper throb. I like the harmonics it gives off. It's smooth, not intrusive, but characterful and soulful. And I'm trying not to be too effusive here. I'm trying to be circumspect and judgmental. The handling is gorgeous. These tires are doing a great job despite being squared off. There's no squirreliness. They're even. They're absolutely, completely and absolutely predictable. Now, as you can feel there and hear in my voice, the suspension stock, my gripe is that it comes far too firm for this 85 kilogram person, both the front and the rear. So I could dial that out. They're fully adjustable, no problems there at all. The bars I feel are just perfect for me. I'm not particularly long-armed, and the position I'm in right now, I'm not getting any neck strain, back strain. I'm getting a little bit of support, of course, from the wind, but I'm not getting a massive amount of windage on me. And I've got a peak on this helmet. I use it for commuting all the time. I've been going between my Kawasaki Z900 RS and this. One day the Kawasaki, one day the Moto Guzzi, and thoroughly enjoying the change between the two, the difference in the two, reveling in it actually. And this bike has been absolutely fabulous. That said, there is a common mod that you might need to do to this bike if your battery isn't new or really powerful enough to turn the engine over. What they're saying is that the diameter, the gauge of the wire going from the battery to the starter is not thick enough, and that if your battery is in any way compromised, i.e. not 100%, 95% or above, then you may have issues and hear the clicking solenoid sound and the starter motor won't turn over. The fix for that is to swap out the gauge of wire. Relatively easy fix. I think it's 15 minutes or so to do it, not hard at all. Or, like me, put it on a trickle charger. Oh yeah, the bike just revels in this. It's just, the feedback is amazing. I might have been a bit remiss in mentioning that if you've come, or if you have a non-Moto Guzzi motorcycle, you might want to give these a try. They are a hoot and a lot of fun. You might be used to all sorts of different things in the genre of bike you've picked, or the make of bike you've picked, but getting on one of these, particularly the more powerful versions like this, is so much fun. I really can't state how much this bike has changed my perspective on riding. And I always loved riding, absolutely loved it, enjoyed it so much. But this bike's added another dimension to it. I can honestly say that I will be doing a long-term review of this in a few years, because this isn't going anywhere. It's a very special bike. Well, if you enjoyed this review of the Moto Guzzi Griso, please click a like, subscribe to my channel, click the bell so you know when I'm uploading. There's a link down there in the notes underneath. I'd love that. Coffee or fuel helps me keep going, helps me get my content out. I really do appreciate, though, if you don't want to do that and you just want to watch, give me a comment. That's all good too. I'm loving the regulars that I get now. I'm aware that people really love reviews, and I don't do that many. Perhaps I'll pick up over the winter and do a few more. There's a few nice bikes coming out that have really caught my eye. Thank you for watching. BlueMarbleRider, out.
Once again, thanks for watching, everyone. If this is the first time you've watched, please consider subscribing. I do product reviews, motorcycle reviews, off-road and on-road vlogs, as well as tours. Don't forget to follow me on social media, that's Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and to like, and especially, I'm begging you here folks, subscribe. This is the BlueMarbleRider, out.